Hello and welcome back. We're continuing on from where we left off last time. We built some Western sawhorses, so it only seems fair, because this is what we actually use in class, to build some Japanese sawhorses too. So we'll start back here in Fusion 360 by creating a new sketch on the side. What I'm going to do is I'm going to draw one of the sides of our foot. We will draw up at an angle and over, down the center, over to the foot. Scroll in a little bit and make that same angle in and across. Now I want these two lines here to be parallel, so we'll start with that. We'll make them parallel. I'm going to tell it that the entire foot piece is going to be 4.5 inches tall. I'm going to say that this line is going to be coincident with our center, and that this line will be raised up just a little. We'll call it 3/8 of an inch. Now, how long is our foot section going to be? We'll say that that is 4 inches wide, and that the entire half of our foot is 11 3/8. It has moved us over a little, so we're going to tell it specifically that that inside face is exactly coincident with the center point, and we will give our dimension of this side at 72 degrees. And that gives us that gives us an angle on both of these sides. Okay, now I wouldn't normally draw this center line because it's going to be mirrored and it'll finish, but I'll click on it and hit X to turn it into a guide, because we'll use that later. Now I'm going to hit Mirror, select this by double-clicking on it, mirror it across that center line, and hit OK, and now we have a foot. There are a few other things that we need to make the sawhorse. We need to have a bar that goes up the side, so I'll select a center point rectangle, and again I will draw it from the center line up, and we don't need to worry too much about how tall it is, except for the fact that it touches this bottom line. So if I expand it, it will only expand up and down. Now on the top we're going to need another piece, so I will select a center point rectangle again, and I will join it on to the top. And now that outside piece is lined up with the outside. I want to make the two other sides collinear, and I'm going to say that the center point of those rectangles is in line with the center line that we just drew. Now I'll give it a dimension. I'm going to say that these are going to be 3.125 inches wide. And I will give it another dimension, which is that the entire structure is going to be 37 inches tall. And one more dimension should just about solve us. I'm going to make this top section equal by saying that this is going to be a square in its cross section. And that, I think, pretty much does it for us on the side pieces. There is just one other thing we want to do, and that is to give ourselves a lower brace. So I'm going to draw another center point rectangle. I'm going to draw it in here, and I'm going to make it exactly the size of this piece. I will hit equals and turn it into a square, and then I will have to give a dimension. How far above our bottom brace do we want it to be? And we're going to make it 7 inches up. Why is this section here blue? All right, it is not lining up. So we'll say collinear. The two outside edges are in the same line. Now, I've seen a lot of Japanese sawhorses where each of these is inset, and you get different sizes, and it looks nice when you get all the shadow lines, but we're trying to make something a bit more practical here, so I'm not going to worry about all those aesthetic details. We're just going to do something really simple. Say Finish Sketch. Now, the first thing we're going to do is we are going to make our top bar. So we'll say Extrude. We'll extrude our top bar. We'll say not to object, to distance. It's going to be symmetric, And because we want a 36-inch bar, we're going to make an 18-inch symmetrical line going across, and we will say New Component, and hit OK. Now our sketch has disappeared, and we will turn it back on, and we're going to make our legs. 1, 2, 3. Each of these is going to be put into our leg, so we just select all of them at the same time. Now I'm going to say we're going to go from the outside edge, and these pieces are going to be exactly 3 1/8 inches thick. We're going in the wrong direction, so we'll just change that to be a negative, and we'll say New Component. But we don't actually want it to be right out here on the outside, because that will make clamping difficult. So we're going to make it inset 4 inches, and say New Component. All right, that looks pretty good. Now we're going to do the same thing with our foot. We will click on our foot, and instead of going from the profile pane, we're going to select going from the object, which is this side of the foot, this side of the leg, and we will go to the other side. And instead of joining, because that will just turn it into one piece of wood, we're going to say it is also a new component. So let's give those some names. The one we just created, we're going to call foot. The one before that, we are going to call leg. And we'll call this top. We have one more piece that we need to fill in, and that is this section in here. And we are going to tell it that we will go right to that inside edge. Now, as you can see, we're only modeling half the legs in here. Say OK, and we'll call that brace. We're going to do some joinery, and there's a reason why we have modeled exactly half of it. I'm going to turn that sketch off, and you can see we have half our leg structure plus our whole top bar. So, first things first, I want to cut in some joinery between the top bar and the leg. So I'll turn the top off, I'll scroll up, and I'll draw a sketch on the top here. Now I am going to draw a diagonal line, and I'll click on it and hit X to turn it into a guide. Now I'm going to create a center point rectangle up here. I will hit equals, and I will click the top and the side to turn it into a square. And I'm going to hit D for dimension, and instead of telling it how big, I'm going to tell it how much of a space I want around the outside. I want a 3/4 inch space around the outside, and hit finish. I will hit extrude, and I'll extrude that, so turn on the top, say to object, and extrude it as far as the top. We'll just say new body, and hit OK. And now we have that going straight through. We'll turn the top off, hit combine, and join our leg to its tenon. Not bad. Now, we've done that without having to worry too much about the fact that we need a tenon on the other side. Now, we do need a tenon on the other side, and we could have just copied the one we have up there, but it's actually got to be a different length. So what we're going to do is we will turn the foot off. We'll go down to the bottom, and we will say Create Sketch. But I want to hit P for project. And I'm going to project by swinging all the way up to the top and projecting this top face. Now, if I go back down and I take a look, you can see that we've now got this exact profile of our tenon. And that's it. I don't need to draw anything else. I can just hit Finish Sketch. Now if I hit Extrude, and I click on that, I can turn back on the foot and say New Body, to Object, and go right through to the bottom of the foot. A New Body again, and hit OK. And if I turn off our foot, we can now see we have a huge tenon cut right there. We will once again say Combine with our tenon, and now we have the tenon right there with our foot. We turn the foot back on. You can see that the foot is intersecting with it. We'll cut that out in a minute, and we're not going to have to worry about it for the moment. We'll do the same thing for the joinery in this center section here. I am going to turn off the leg and create a sketch on the outside face of our brace. I will draw a line from corner to corner. You can draw 2 lines through the midpoints, but it's faster just to draw 1. I will find the center, marked by that triangle, and I will cut that. We're going to hit D for dimension, and again, make it 3/4 of an inch inset. We will say equals and turn this into a square, which is the shape of the tenon that we want. We're going to click on that piece, turn on our leg, and extrude right to the outside edge of our leg. We're going to say join because we don't need to worry about it anymore. Get rid of the leg. And we'll say OK, and that is now part of our brace piece. All right, we're doing pretty well with these. The only thing that we want to do now is make sure we can pin them in place. So first, what I want to do is cut in some of the holes for the joinery. So I will say combine. We'll make these cuts and keep the tools. I'm going to cut this leg with its brace. I'll right-click on the background and cut the foot with the leg. And I am going to do it. I don't need to cut a hole in the top one yet. I could mirror it first. But I think I will combine the top with this leg just for completeness sake. And we can now see that we're going right through all of those pieces. Okay, now I want to put in some nice square pins. So we'll start with the top. We're going to model on this front face here. I'm going to hit P for project and project the outside edges of the tenon. So I will draw a center line right through the tenon, click on it and hit X. I'm also going to draw a center line the other way through the tenon and hit X by turning that into a guideline as well. Now if I click on this center point rectangle and I choose to draw a square out here, we will hit equals and actually make it a square. I'll drag it up and I'm going to give that a dimension of 1/2 inch. I'm going to say that I want this to be mirrored because our mirror line, that center line I just drew. Note I haven't told it exactly where it is yet. I can mirror it and then I can give it the dimension between the 2 pieces, and I'm going to make those exactly 3/4 of an inch apart. Finish sketch. Excellent. Now, if I look down here, I'm going to have to do exactly the same thing with this bar. But this bar is exactly the same thickness as the bar on the top. So I don't even need to create it again. I'm going to say construct a midplane. That means a plane halfway between. And I'm going to go from the inside to the inside. I could go outside to outside. It would be in exactly the same place. And hit OK. So now I can mirror that down here. The ones on the bottom are actually going to be spaced a little differently, so I'm not going to worry about mirroring those. All right, so if I hit extrude and I pick the 2 profiles that I just created, which it doesn't seem to want to let me do, I'm just going to turn these off. 1, 2, 3, 4. Turn all of them off, and when in doubt, that's usually the easiest way to select anything. Just get rid of the 3-dimensional objects. And we're going to go right through to the other side of this top bar. We'll say new body and hit OK. Now we have those pins in place. What I want to do is mirror the pins. Select both. And we'll mirror them across into the other bar. I'm just going to create a new component to keep these in. People always ask me, what do you create components for? When do you use them? When do you not? You can think of a component like a file folder, and each body as like a sheet of paper. So when you want to have a collection of things work together as a unit, I would say create a component. We'll call this pins. And you can then put all the bodies into that folder. If you have something that is more complex, you can always say that you want a folder that contains folders with pieces of paper in them. You can go as many layers deep, as far as I know, as you like. I've gone several dozen deep, and it's never given me any sort of a problem. There's probably a theoretical limit, but I have no idea what it is. So now, if we look at this, we can see that we have 4 pins. We need to create another couple of them. We're going to model on the side of our leg here. Hit P for project. We'll turn the leg off. Whoops, not the leg. We'll turn the foot off. And I'm going to select the tenon and hit OK. If again I draw a center line in both directions, I can select them and hit X. And now they are guides. I'm going to create a square in the middle here, say equals, and make it actually square. We'll hit D for dimension and make these 3/4 of an inch. I am going to mirror by double-clicking, selecting this line, and hitting OK. And I am going to make them exactly 1 inch apart. I'll hit OK. Now if I select those and extrude, I will turn back on the foot, and I will go directly to the inside, and we will say new body. Okay. I'll take those 2 bodies and drag them into the pins. And what I'm going to do to make those a little easier to see is I'm going to open up the appearance panel by hitting A, and I'm going to take this 3D Maple dark stain and apply it to the pins. Now, I'm not suggesting that you actually stain your pins dark. Oh, you can if you certainly if you want to. But what I've done is I have made those so they are going to actually be darker, just like the end grain. And I'm noticing something that I may have gotten quite a little wrong here, and I'm going to fix it because someone's going to point it out to me. Well, no, someone might not even notice it. But I drew those pins through as if the tenon was going vertically on that middle brace, but it is not. The tenon is actually going horizontally, so the pins need to be lined in the other direction. So I'm just going to go in here. I'm going to delete this midplane, hit delete, and I'm going to delete this mirror. And that's fine. We'll get rid of this cut paste as well. So those 2 extra pins just don't exist anymore. So I am going to take these 2 and put them in the pins folder. But now I have to create 2 new ones. That's all right. We will create a new sketch. On the outside face, I'm going to hit P for project and project in that tenon. We'll do the same procedure. I could copy the ones that are already there, but this is such a fast procedure, and I think we can all stand to use a little practice. We'll do it exactly the same way. I am going to create a midpoint rectangle. I'm going to say it is equal, so that it is a square, and I'm going to say it is equal to the size of the pins we had up on top. And that's fine. I will now mirror it across the center line. So we have 2 equally spaced from the center, and I am going to give it a dimension between the 2, and we will make them 1 inch apart. I don't know. I think we'll make them 3/4 of an inch apart. Wait a second. Why is it doing that? I don't think it copied our dimension properly. All right, we'll type it in. I don't think those are 3/4. I think those are a 1/2 inch, are they? Let's go up here and check. If we go up here and we hit I can click on this little piece here, and it will tell us, yes, length 0.5 inches. Now, why it didn't copy that properly, I have no idea. But we are going to keep that as a 1/2 inch. We're going to mirror that across the center line. And we will say that our distance between the two is going to be 3/4 of an inch. I'm going to check to see if that's the same distance we have up here. I think it is. Distance. Yes, 3/4 of an inch. This I for inspect will give you measurements between any things that you want. Turn the top back on just for visual appearance. I will scroll in, hit finish sketch, and I'm going to extrude those through to the other side. No, not that. Sometimes it's hard to select things with 3D bodies turned on, but that's okay. You can temporarily turn them off. We will say distance to object. We're going to go through to the middle, and we will say new body. I'll take those, body 8 and 9, or sorry, 9 and 10, drag them into the pins, and as we've already applied the appearance to that pins component, they will show up as dark. Now, I do that mostly to show that they look like the end grain of the pins. All right, so we have those nicely protruding through. We could go very aesthetic and make the whole thing look like one of Michael Pekovich's sawhorses and have these protrude and extend. And honestly speaking, I definitely would do that if I was making these for myself. But because this is a simple modeling exercise that I think you're probably going to want to copy, rather than go through all that extra complexity, I'm just going to leave them flush trimmed, and you can cut them off. Much the same with these models here. I'd probably inset that a little and inset the middle one and make the outside one look a little wider, just because it will look more impressive. But none of those things actually changes the functionality of these lovely sawhorses, so I'm not going to worry too much about it. Okay, to cut in some of these pins for the joinery, what I'm going to do is I will cut the pins, all of them, through a whole bunch of places. So we'll start with the top, and we'll cut all the pins into the top and hit OK. We're going to right-click and hit repeat, and we're going to cut all the pins into our leg. We're going to repeat and cut all the pins into our brace. Now, we're just cutting all the pins. We're not just cutting the pins that actually intersect with it. We're cutting all the pins so it doesn't matter which pins intersect with it and which pins don't. And the fact that the pins on the bottom are going through several pieces at the same time, we don't have to cut them all together. So if I turn all the pins off, I should now be able to look straight through all the places where there are pinholes and see to the other side. Whoops. We're upside down. Easy to get a little disoriented here in 3D modeling land. And if I scroll in, yes, we can see all the way through to all the different sides. Now, the only other thing I need to do is I need to mirror all our pins across the center line. Pins are now floating in space. Very good. I am going to cut the top with all those pins on the other side. So we now have our holes. Oh, do we not have our holes? Ah, I didn't select them all. My bad. I am going to cut the top with all the pins, which I could have done before, but that's all right. And now I have the holes. I am going to mirror our leg across the center. I'm going to mirror our brace across the center, and it will join. I will mirror our leg across the center, and you can now see that because we cut the joinery in advance, we don't have to do it again. There's only one piece of joinery now we actually have to cut in, and that is we need to cut the top with this other leg, and our joinery is finished. If I turn the pins back on, we will now see that we have this neat little Japanese sawhorse, and it is totally stable. Now, some people want to have a top bar across the top of here, and a lot of the time they will make that bar sort of a decorative surface. I don't think that's particularly necessary. Oh, the script key, sorry. I don't think that's particularly necessary or really all that useful. This bar is quite stable the way it is. If you actually want to have a top on here that you can work on, that's great, but what I recommend is to take this sawhorse and turn it into a workbench. And what I'm going to do is, next time, we're going to take this model and start from here and actually build a fully functional workbench around it and one of its partners. So you'll be able to see that next time. If you have enjoyed this class, please click the like button. If you'd like to see more, we regularly do live and live-to-tape classes like this. So if you want to see more of those, click on the subscribe button and ring the bell so you get notifications for each of our new live videos. If you have enjoyed and found this useful, please share it with any forums or social media that you're a part of so other woodworkers and interested people might be able to share in the learning experience. These classes are and always will be absolutely free to you here on YouTube and other streaming platforms. We also offer individual one-on-one and group tuition, so you can learn about Fusion 360, woodworking in general, Japanese traditional woodworking and modeling techniques, whether they're in wood or otherwise. So please contact us if you are looking for training in any of those areas, and we will try to meet your needs at a reasonable cost. Other than that, please like, share, and subscribe as we said, and join us next time as we turn our single Japanese sawhorse into 2 Japanese sawhorses and a functional, portable, full-size workbench. Thank you very much. Have a great day in your shop.